So unfortunately, we are heading back into a foreclosure crisis. Unemployment is spiking, people are starting to lose their jobs, things are getting more and more expensive, and unfortunately for a lot of people, foreclosures are back. What does that mean? How do you handle that situation? I'm gonna explain to you from my almost 20 years of helping thousands and thousands of people not only fight foreclosures, but also buy foreclosures. I'm going to explain to you what you can do if you are facing a foreclosure right now. Para quererte tengo tantas razones, para quererte cariño, tantas razones, para quererte, para quererte, para quererte. My name is Diego Mendez. I am a foreclosure coach, lawyer, and expert here in Miami, Florida. I've been practicing foreclosure law for almost 20 years. I've helped thousands of people get out of foreclosure and deal with the psychological and the legal aspects of dealing with a foreclosure, the loss of their home, the loss of their investment properties, the loss of things that they loved and they thought were going to be for life. But unfortunately, not everything works out like that. Now, the number one thing you have to remember that when you are in a foreclosure situation, doesn't matter if it's your home or an investment property, that the bank does not want your actual house back. What they want is they want to get paid on what you owe them. And what they're trying to do is get the house back, the collateral back of what was promised to pay them, so that either you pay them or somebody else pays them through an auction or through a sale later on. There's actually laws in place right now that protect people who are in a foreclosure situation. What that is something called dual tracking. What it is basically, as long as you are applying for a loan modification, the bank cannot move forward a foreclosure. This is not a forever hold, but it does help you slow down a foreclosure. What does that mean? You need to be applying for loan modifications from the get-go. As long as you are working on a loan modification, the bank will slow down the foreclosure and they won't move it forward. This is not forever. The bank will eventually make a decision and either deny your loan modification or give you a loan modification you're going to start paying, or give you something you can't pay, so you're basically you're back to where you started. But the dual tracking laws do protect consumers because you are not allowed, the banks are not allowed to move foreclosures forward when you are applying for loan modification. Now, not every bank follows this, and it's not a universal thing, but most of the big banks and most of the government-backed loans like FHA, the VA loans, those type of loans, they do follow this. So that's an important thing to remember. The next thing is that if you really cannot get a loan modification, then you're going to have to move into what's called foreclosure defense mode. Foreclosure defense slows down the foreclosure. What does it do? There's basically legal things you can do with an attorney to slow down the foreclosure, to give you an opportunity to reapply for loan modification or to come up with the money that you need to reinstate the loan. This is a really important thing. You cannot ignore anything you receive from a process server, somebody that knocks on your door and hands you a stack of papers. Don't ignore that. If you ignore that, you are going to lose your home. You have to pay attention to the sale dates. The sale date is the end. That's when the house is sold at auction. So if you receive legal process, make sure you're talking to an attorney, or you can do it yourself if you really need to. You can defend yourself. It's harder to do than with an attorney. Most attorneys will work with you in terms of charging you a small fee, sometimes a monthly fee, so that you can get some sort of legal representation and slow down the process and possibly save your home. The third option, and the thing that comes at the end of every foreclosure process, is a bankruptcy. Now, this is not the worst word in the English language. A lot of people look at this as the worst thing that could ever happen to you. No. Bankruptcy actually resets the clock, stops the sale, stops the foreclosure auction, and lets you have one last opportunity to modify your loan. After the 2008 financial crisis and the foreclosure crisis, a lot of bankruptcy courts started these mortgage mediation programs that might exist in your district. You need to take advantage of that. That's through a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. You can stop the foreclosure, and many times the bank is forced to at least look at your loan modification application and try their very best to give you loan modification, or at minimum, tell you why they're not going to give you loan modification. So work with a bankruptcy attorney because they can help you stop the sale and slow down the process. Now, what are the pros and cons of all of this? The pros and cons of not immediately selling your house is that you have time. You have time in the house to live in it and to, basically be there and try to get a loan modification. But the longer you're in that property without paying it, the more of your equity is being eaten away. Now, equity is probably going to go down because the values of the properties are going to go down, but there's so much equity out there that you might want to consider selling your house early on to try to grab some of this equity. The longer you sit in the house without paying it, the more interest, taxes, and insurance that the banks are paying for you. They put all this very expensive insurance on, which is called forced place corporate insurance. That stuff eats away your equity really fast. You could owe $100,000 in a year if you're not careful. So those are my thoughts on this. If you have any questions, ask them in the question box, in the comment box. I will try to respond if I can. I'm not going to give you legal advice, but I will try to respond the best I can to see if I can help you along your process.